This is not a very good day for a lot of people in this country. About 30 million people across the United States had their families' food assistance slashed. And this is in spite of the high food prices that we're all dealing with right now, and even warnings from experts about something now called a hunger cliff, as in falling off that cliff. The SNAP benefits, that used to be the food stamp benefits. SNAP stands for Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, SNAP. Those benefits were initially increased at the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic back in May of 2020, I believe. And even though 18 states that were controlled by Republicans at the time had already ended these emergency allotments for food. They were called EAs, emergency allotments. In the other 27 states, the other 32 states, along with Washington, D.C., Guam, and the U.S. Virgin Islands, have continued to receive these emergency allotments. Now, in the first place, they're called emergency for a very good reason. When people cannot or do not have the wherewithal for even anything close to decent nutrition, this is when, in a democratic society, this is when the government is supposed to step in and try to alleviate the situation in the same way that the government will step in when a hurricane hits, or tornadoes hit, or floods hit, or massive forest fires develop. You know, in the aftermath of these disasters, we count on the government, the various government agencies. That's why they're constructed, to step in and help folks who are desperately in need of help. And that includes food. Now, the increased SNAP benefits, these emergency allotments, ended today because of the omnibus spending package from back in December, when federal lawmakers traded the temporary pandemic era boost for a permanent program to feed children in the summer. Now, so they're going to take it away now and give it back in the summer when the kids are not in school. You know, it's been said that poverty is a policy choice in this country. And I think the same can be said for hunger. It's a policy choice. People are going hungry in the United States. Screw them. That's what the guy who was the rather large Christian minister who endorsed Nikki Haley. What's his name? He's been made infamous because of sermons he used to give where he would say, if people are hungry, screw them, let them be hungry. Don't get me started. I realize this Wednesday is prayer meeting night, but I don't want to get started on that. So, the article I'm quoting from appeared in Common Dreams, and they quote a woman named Deanna Hardy. She's a mother of two in Marshfield, Wisconsin. And she told ABC News, quote, "We are really going to struggle. We're going to have to end up going back to cheaper items like noodles and processed stuff because the meat, the dairy, fruits, and vegetables are too expensive." Too expensive. Okay. She added, this mother of two in Wisconsin, she added, quote, "I don't think the cuts could have happened at a worse time." Now, her family relies on a fixed income, and they will see their benefits drop from $960 a month to $200 a month. From $960 to $200. She said, quote, "When the extra payments began, food prices were nowhere near where they are now," end quote. So, an associate professor of political science, University of Richmond, her name is Tracy Roof. She recently wrote for The Conversation. I'm sure you're familiar with that. The Conversation. You can pick it up a number of places online. I think the Washington Post carries it. But this is what she wrote. Quote, many advocates for a stronger safety net say that SNAP benefits are too low to meet the needs of low-income people. And those advocates are warning of a looming hunger cliff, meaning a sharp increase in the number of people who don't get enough nutritious food to eat, starting in March 2023, when the extra help ends. What is today? March 1st. That's the end of her quote. So, at that point, the point that we reached today, the lowest income families will lose $95 in benefits a month, but some of these SNAP participants, like elderly and disabled people who live alone or on fixed incomes and who only qualify for the minimum amount of help, they'll see their benefits plunge from $281 a month to $23 a month for food. $6 a week? 80 cents a day? A trio of studies from the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities. Experts there pointed out earlier this month, well, in February actually, that, quote, a study estimated that these emergency allotments kept over 4 million people above the poverty line in the last quarter of 2021. And in that manner, reduced poverty in the country by 10% and reduced child poverty by 14%. Just by maintaining enough money to meet bare minimum requirements for nutrition. Now, that occurred in states with the emergency allotments. And of course, here's nothing new. The estimated reduction in poverty rates due to emergency allotments, the reduction was highest for Black and Latino people. It's always that way, isn't it? Yes, it is. Now, the president of the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities, her name is Sharon Parrish, she warned yesterday that the cuts that went into effect today will, quote, allow very high levels of poverty to remain in this country. But who cares? I mean, I know you care. And I care. But you and I are not decision makers, are we? We are not legislators. We do not have anything to say about the purse strings of this government. We allow $800-900 billion, almost $1 trillion a year to be spent on weaponry. But we're going to cut food stamps for some people from about $300 a month to $23 a month. That makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? Well, if you live in a Christian capitalist society, it's, standard operating procedure. Now, at the same time, the fascist American Supreme Court has been hearing arguments about the legitimacy or the legality of Joe Biden's plan to reduce part, and I might say a small part, in most instances, of individual student debt in this country. Kids that want to get an education, but who come from a family background or a socioeconomic background that they can't afford even a state school, will borrow money to get an education so that they can add to this capitalist shit that we all live in. And then they have to pay it back. But in the process of trying to pay it back, they delay marriage, delay having kids, delay buying a home, delay this, delay that, because they're paying off this goddamn debt. We tell the young people in this country, if you want to succeed, you're going to have to get more than a high school education. And for the most part, anything more than a high school education is going to cost you tuition money. If you don't have the tuition money, oh, well, you can borrow it, and the government will guarantee it, and everything will be fine. No, it won't. Just like Bernie Sanders has advocated, Elizabeth Warren has advocated, a number of progressives have advocated. Education, secondary education on a college level or trade school level should be free. Anything other than that is insanity. It's just crazy. Do you know how little it would take to make available funds for every student who graduated high school who wanted to go on to further education? How much it would cost if every kid in America wanted to do that? What have I read? $100 billion? 1/10 of what we spend on weapons of mass destruction, on weapons of death and bombing and burning and killing. 1/10. Poverty is a policy choice in the United States, as is hunger. Public Citizen, the president of Public Citizen, Robert Weissman, who took note of the report from the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities. And after he read the report, Weissman declared, quote, "A decent society would not let this happen," end quote. A decent society would not let this happen. A society that wanted to continue to grow, to flourish, would not let this happen. What kind of a society does let this happen? I'm so sick of hearing these right-wing devils say, well, this is a Christian country. Okay, if it's a Christian country, why don't you son of a bitches act like it? Hi, Truth Seekers. Mike Malloy here. You know, the Progressive Voices Network brings you commercial-free commentary from today's leading progressive radio hosts and pundits, like me, Mike Malloy, 24 hours a day. I'm not your typical old guy from the 80s or the 90s talk radio host, and Progressive Voices is not your typical talk radio network. It's a listener-supported nonprofit with no corporate control whatsoever over our broadcast. So hosts like me, Mike Malloy, are free to rant and scream and carry on about whatever we like. We're often controversial, but we're never boring. Weeknights, 9 p.m. in the East, 6 p.m. in the West on the Progressive Voices Network. Always progressive, always on. I'm Mike Malloy. Keep it lit.